A lot of times when we talk about lost media, we usually discuss topics from the perspective of content we'll never find, or content that was maybe not as exciting as we were expecting it to be. But of course, that omits all the content we have found that was either a huge surprise it became really memorable within the community, or a relief to finally conclude and close the case on. Today I want to take this approach to a few topics that are classics and have cemented themselves within the history of the community. This begins with a topic that I consider being from the old days of the lost media community, not only for how long it had been known to exist for, but also for how impossible it seemed that the single copy would ever be shared online. Yeah, it was one of those topics that couldn't really be searched for, and waiting for an unexpected opportunity was really the only way it would resurface. And surprisingly, that's exactly how it got found, and concluded in such a wholesome way. If you guys remember back many years ago, around the time Rebel Taxi had started covering lost and cancelled cartoon pilots, he mentioned one in particular that always sounded cool. It was about a cancelled animated series that was pitched to Disney back in 2003, adapting the Kingdom Hearts series of games for television. For the majority of this project's existence, nobody online even knew about it until as early as 2014, when director Sean Kersley uploaded some storyboard panels online, and news began to spread that such a project was ever even planned. A couple years later is the time when Rebel Taxi discussed the topic in one of his videos, and even reached out to Sean directly, who provided a photo of the tape. This was the first time we had actually seen a physical copy of it, and proved it still existed. But it was never uploaded, and he made it very clear that it couldn't be shared. It was basically the first and last time anyone got a look at it, until 6 years later. In late 2022, out of nowhere, Sean started making posts that announced he had plans to release the contents of the tape. They seemingly came out of nowhere. Another image of the tape was posted, showing he was serious about this, and it matched exactly with the previous one too. Following these sudden and unexpected posts, the actual pilot showed up shortly after. While the pilot itself wasn't fully animated and is more of an animatic, it was colored and had full voice acting, a project that was well worth the wait to see. But you might be wondering why exactly Sean changed his mind about uploading it in the first place, or why it took so many years to get online. Well, as he explained back then, when the news was making the rounds, he had a pretty big brush with death shortly before making the decision to upload the content, and realized that if anything happened to him before being able to upload it, then fans might never be able to experience this piece of work that he cared about so much. With a new outlook on life, it prompted him to post it, and oh boy did it gain a lot of attention, so much in fact that Disney wanted it taken down. That did end up happening, and while the original upload is indeed gone, Sean achieved his goal, as it was saved and re-uploaded many times after, so it will never become lost again and can be enjoyed by everyone. Despite the severity of events leading up to its release, no one could have predicted such an occurrence leading to Sean sharing it with fans in the first place. I'm actually not even sure if the contents of this tape even exist anywhere else. Maybe in Disney's archive they do, but we all know they wouldn't have released them in the first place. For that reason, I'll always remember following along with those tweets and eagerly awaiting that upload. A lot of people question what made 2022 such a good year for found media, and this topic in its entirety is one of the finds that I point to supporting my stance. I think it would be a little unfair to go the whole video and not mention at least one SpongeBob topic, because just as SpongeBob topics have had a long history of searches within the community, there are just as many victories with its found media as well. A lot of these have varying degrees of difficulty and frustration, but one topic that I remember very distinctly from the earlier days of the community was astrology with Squidward. Of course, a day with SpongeBob could fit this criteria too, but that's a whole different story. For those newer searchers who are unaware of this topic or who want a refresher, since it's been so many years since these were found, Astrology with Squidward was basically a series that had Squidward give the viewer their horoscope as the astrological signs changed with the months. So periodically he'd tell you the fortune for Sagittarius, Leo, Taurus, and a few others. They were short segments and animated rather cheaply, and aired in between commercial breaks. And for a long time, that's about all the information anyone could agree on, because the rest was up for debate. I would say out of all the topics that were being searched for in the mid-2010s era, this one was a point of contention for how many unverified claims made the rounds. There were debates about where the series aired or how long it was broadcast for, and of course the legendary argument about how many segments even exist in the series to begin with. As early as the mid-2000s, right around the time the series was discontinued, there was an interest from SpongeBob fans in getting these shorts online. It was back then when the earliest Wikipedia articles and claims about the series were first posted, mostly containing inaccurate information or claims about its content. And as the shorts fell further and further into obscurity over the years, the details surrounding them began to get even more unclear. Now, once this topic was picked up by the Lost Media Wiki, 6 different shorts were uploaded and considered found. Unless I'm misremembering, I'm pretty sure those had all been uploaded by that point. But I know it was around this time when people began looking at what was found and questioned if that was really all of them, starting a debate surrounding the series as a whole, which stated that there were more than 6 shorts created for it. Pearl as Virgo and Squidward as Libra were among the most popular shorts that were considered still lost. Not to mention, a claim that was found on the German SpongeBob wiki that stated Plankton actually appeared as Scorpio in one of the shorts, despite already showing up as Leo. Some users took this claim as fact and believed that more than the 6 shorts were actually made, and that some characters overlapped and were used in multiple shorts. But it was very confusing and no one really knew what to believe for sure. As far as I could tell, all this weird information was sourced back to unverified wiki posts or anonymous claims that had no real evidence behind them. The only evidence supporting their existence was just the fact that the series' obscurity could explain the short's rarity, and that we didn't have complete sets of the other language dubs either. To this day, I still don't believe we have complete international sets of them, but really there was no way to prove once and for all if we had the whole set or not. This was until 2019, several years after the search began, when I reached out to Vincent Waller on Twitter and asked specifically about the series, to which he confirmed there were only 6 made, and the rest of the signs were not. This was such a relief to know that there was nothing else to find, and gave the non-believers validation that the unsourced wiki claims and contradictions of character appearances were just hoaxes. In fact, the official SpongeBob YouTube channel even made a compilation of the shorts after the Lost Media Wiki reached its own conclusion. I don't see anyone claim that more shorts exist nowadays, but for a while there was some fallout from the believers who swore there were more that aired internationally and that the SpongeBob upload only included the found ones for that specific reason, and that there was some kind of conspiracy why the rest were excluded. While the media we were trying to find never really existed, finding a conclusion is what was most memorable to me about this topic, on top of the fact that we actually did get all 6 real shorts found, and I really didn't think we would ever be able to prove that either. This is another topic that hasn't been talked about for years, but it was such a revelation of a topic back when the new details were resurfacing. To this day I think it set a precedent for how powerful spreading awareness can really be. Though this topic does fit the definition of both media and merch, because the photos that resurfaced really were the first of their kind, and might still be lost if their owners hadn't come across my original videos. Back many years ago, I came across a mystery that discussed a couple of rare Animal Crossing DS consoles that nobody knew the origin of. Up to that point, nobody, and I mean nobody online, had any clear details about them. In 2018, I came across photos of what were claimed to be contest prize DS consoles that were painted with Animal Crossing graphics on them. At the time, the console variation database had 2 entries for these consoles, one depicting spring artwork from the game and another depicting winter. Each one was claimed to have been awarded to the winner of a character design contest, and that only one of each existed. This seemed a little strange to me, as it's easy to assume one-of-one products were part of some rare contest that nobody had ever heard of before, and explained their rarity. But at the same time, they could easily be customs that were just misrepresented as official prizes. This theory was enhanced by a completely separate blog post that showed the same photos of the consoles, and claimed the user who made the post had customized the DS themselves. So one website was claiming these were legendary prizes, and the other claimed they were unofficial customs. Which one is it? The spring image in particular had been reposted on a variety of different websites. Luckily, one that still had its source linked that could be traced back to an older website where it came from. And then that one itself had a comment in the post which linked even further back to 2 web pages that showed the spring and winter consoles, officially connecting them to Nintendo of Sweden and the company's distributor, Bergsala. The Spring DS was indeed awarded to the winner of a character design contest, while the Winter one was awarded randomly in a trivia contest. The name of the character design winner was given, so I found him on Facebook and confirmed he still had the DS. And that was it. I thought the mystery would have ended with that. But then something unbelievable happened. A viewer who had seen the original spring and winter video came forward in an email and showed me the Autumn DS, which he said was awarded to his local game store for high sales of Nintendo products. Once the store closed, he kept it for all these years, and it had never been seen online or documented at all before. I'm glad we got photos of the inside too, since it's filled with more colors and designs that you'd never see unless the console was opened. At this point, I had speculated that if 3 consoles exist representing different seasons, it was likely a 4th one did, showcasing summer as well. And then after another year, a summer one was indeed dug up. Apparently this photo came from Bergsala itself, and is possibly the last remaining documentation of it in the wild. The employee who took these photos claimed to not have any information on where the console ended up or how it was given out, strangely mentioning that records of the contest were destroyed after it had ended. It's really crazy to think that what started out as such a small, novel mystery about the origin of a couple photos led to the discovery of an entire set that nobody had ever seen before. Not only that, but later on, it was also discovered that variants exist for at least some of the consoles based on noticeable paint differences. One of the variants having come from a private collection, whose photo has since been deleted. Without this one, we would have no idea that additional versions exist. And also as a little update to this mystery, which I don't think I ever talked about in a video, the original winner of the winter console did end up finding my first video years ago and reached out to me, confirming they were the winner, which is really cool that we've made a full circle back to the beginning. But there are still a few more mysteries about how many variants were made and where the latter consoles did end up. So it would be cool to get more answers after all these years, and maybe someone watching this video can provide those for us. What can I say about this next topic that hasn't already been expressed before by me, the community, and long-term fans that were eagerly awaiting for this one to show up? I think out of all the topics I've covered in the video so far, this is one that I truly never expected to show up, especially in the way that it did. It was one of those 1 in a million opportunities that just so happened to perfectly align and made all the years of waiting extremely worth it. This is none other than one of my favorite Lost Media Classic topics, JBVO. If you go all the way back to the beginning of the story, there is no way you'd believe we could have found this in its entirety. Now, the topic itself existed long before any kind of search for its content, over 15 years before in fact. JBVO was a relatively short-lived program that aired on Cartoon Network for around a year, from spring 2000 to summer 2001, and featured Johnny Bravo playing viewer-requested cartoons from fans who called into the show. These calls were pre-recorded, but they did actually happen prior to its airing, so it gave the illusion that the show was live. Similarly to Astrology with Squidward, despite JBVO being an entire show, for whatever reason, this one fell into obscurity, and there wasn't a lot of information online about it. Most of what had been obtained were short promos that didn't really give us a whole lot of context as to how it was aired, so rumors filled in the gaps. A lot of people claimed the short air cycle was the result of poor ratings, so it was cancelled prematurely, while others said episodes were never rerun in attempts to keep the live illusion intact. However, the biggest draw of the series itself came from a single recollection that was shared online, years before the Lost Media Wiki even took interest in this topic. When JBVO was airing back in the day, there was one episode in particular that had a viewer calling into the show and requesting Dragon Ball Z be played. Johnny claimed they didn't have enough time to air the whole thing, so he sped it up and gave his own commentary over it. Apparently it was a really wild thing to witness, and the claim itself is so strange you'd think someone was making it up, or that these recollections were simply false memories, and for years it did stay that way without any proof. It was really hard to believe something like this existed when there were just random forum posts online that said it did. But at the same time it was so specific you have to wonder how could someone have made that up. I was so interested in this rumor, I made a video about it at the time, and then, in only about 2 months after that video came out, we actually did get proof that the segment was real, thanks to Captain Bizarre, who found a low-quality clip on a VHS tape that he happened to receive at the time. Now the problem with this clip is that while it proved it was real, it cuts out very abruptly, and we don't really get a whole lot of context to it. Not only that, but the large majority of JBVO was still missing around this time. We didn't even know what episode specifically this clip came from. So over the years, we just hoped that more from it would resurface. And some clips and commercials did show up, even a couple full episodes. But not the Dragon Ball Z one, and for the most part, JBVO content would constantly go through cycles of being unavailable, then being taken down or blocked. There came a point where I just figured that any content from this show that got posted would eventually be taken down, so we'd never even have a full collection online in the first place. And basically it took around 6 years of this cycle to occur before it was broken, when user Sanders Planet, who had come across the search from my videos, came forward and showcased to me an entire collection of tapes from the series, every single episode in fact, plus the pilot, that nobody even knew existed and had been archived from their mom's time actually working on the show. Not only did this unearth the entire series in a quality that surpassed any of the current uploads, but it also contained the mythical Dragon Ball Z Request episode. In May 2023, it was uploaded and blew up in the Lost Media community, as well as many areas outside of it. I'll never forget looking down at my phone to get that notification that it finally showed up, almost to the day from when the episode originally premiered. It was as simple as the right person coming forward, who became aware of the search and ended the need to try and scour for home recordings or incomplete clips that needed to be stitched together. Of course, getting them ripped in their entirety has become another issue. The process had been underway when Turner took down the upload from the Internet Archive, but thankfully they were backed up and those ones haven't been taken down yet. Though the whole tape collection did not actually get ripped, but Sanders did say they were going to continue the process. So at the very least, we do know a whole collection of the series is safe. We've made it to the final topic of the video, and I have to admit, I think this is one of the biggest reasons why I still believe 2022 was the best year for found media. Don't get me wrong, there was a lot found in 2022 that added to its power, but Wicked Witch Sesame Street is such a heavyweight that few can compete with. Nobody, and I mean nobody, ever thought we were going to see this banned episode from decades ago, especially in its entirety, that only had a handful of pictures available up to that point. If anything, it was far more likely that new content would show up in smaller amounts, like what happened in 2019 at the Lost and Found event hosted in New York. But this was almost nothing in comparison to the full dump that ended up happening online. And well, there are still some questions surrounding that, but regardless, it did see release. In fact, its impact was so large that it even got mainstream coverage. It was really unprecedented for a piece of lost media. And of course, since it had such a large and popular fan base, I'm sure you probably have heard about this one before. Wicked Witch Sesame Street, or Sesame Street 847, was a banned episode of the long-running series as a result of the response it got when it originally aired. The premise of the episode was that the Wicked Witch from The Wizard of Oz loses her broom while flying over Sesame Street, so she has to interact with the civilians in an effort to get it back. While the concept alone doesn't seem too scary, apparently it was the portrayal of the witch that was. There are reports from back in the day that state the witch's appearance scared kids who watched the episode, and led to a bunch of angry letters and complaints from parents who were angry about its content. This eventually led to the decision to ban the episode from television, and the rest is history. It was never seen or heard from again. Having already cemented its place in banned kids' media history, as well as being from such a popular series to begin with, the cultural impact and intrigue of this episode has lived on, both in and out of the lost media community, for decades. But within the community, it did become a large point of discussion for years, and you can find several threads that discussed how a release of this episode could maybe happen, and petitions to re-release it in special collections. Now of course, none of this ever happened officially, and even the clips that were shown at the Lost and Found event were pretty rare to come across at the time, only being recorded in bootleg style that made them appear in fairly low quality to begin with. It was nothing like being able to see it in person or get a clean rip. But at the time it was something, and just like so many topics in this video, it was a piece of lost media in the back of everyone's mind that they hoped would eventually release, but unsure how or when or what the circumstance would have been. But then indeed, 3 years after the Lost and Found event, through unclear and mysterious sources, it did show up. One day in June 2022, the whole episode from start to finish was uploaded online in its entirety, and it sent fans into a frenzy, as one of the holy grails of lost media was actually available to the public for the first time. The question remained though, how this happened and who did it, which we never really got a clear answer on, other than its origin coming from that of a Reddit user, who was believed to have stolen it from the public broadcast archive, as that's where the episode was most easily accessible. In 2019, 4,500 episodes of Sesame Street, including this one, were archived in the American Archive of Public Broadcasting. So we knew a copy had existed there, we just had no way to see it, as it could only be viewed at the Library of Congress. This led to the belief that it was likely stolen, and following its leak, a ban was placed at the archive, preventing any private screenings of other Sesame Street content from taking place, as well as trying to get the episode taken down from online. Of course, scrubbing the entire internet of this content was impossible by that point, as the episode had been saved and re-uploaded, but it did spark one of the many debates regarding lost media leaking on the internet. My stance on leaks has always been to never advocate for them, but if someone with content chooses to post it publicly, then I'm not going to go out of my way to avoid it. I know there are a lot of different perspectives about this, but no matter your stance, it can be agreed that this episode probably never would have seen a wide release otherwise. And really, we do still have a whole bunch of other topics in a similar boat that also might never see release. Van Partible claims he's never going to share Meso Blues, the Johnny Bravo prototype short. We have no idea if any copies of Batman Fights Dracula still exist in the Philippines. And who knows if we'll ever even get any more fan-favorite betas like Luigi's Mansion and Conquer 64. But just like some of the biggest topics showed up unexpectedly, we can't count out even more surprises as we continue searching and spreading awareness for lost media. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out some of my other lost media videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Finn.